you not follow if you miss the first three. So
Mhm.
let us know if you have any questions, though, about mindful leadership. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Meditation Live. My name's Stefan Ravalli. I'm a host here at Meditation Live. I'm also a host of the Serve Conscious podcast and a meditation and mindfulness teacher. And I'm joined today by our expert coach, meditation mindfulness teacher, Andy Lee. Hello, Andy. Excited to talk with you about mindful leadership.
Hi, Stefan. Hello, everybody. Great to be here again.
So excited about today's topic, which will focus on connection and a particular kind that's instrumental for the growth of your employees.
Mhm.
But before we begin, I would like to remind everyone to please use the interactive features of today's discussion. Those are found in the chat box. You can post any questions there or in the Q&A box. And you can put up your hand as well. We can activate your mic. You can talk directly to us, to Andy, actually, and tap directly into his expertise. I recommend doing that for sure. I enjoy talking to him. You guys should have the same privilege. You can also do this only on the app, though. So on YouTube, we love seeing you. We can't talk to you there. Interactivity can be unlocked by downloading it from the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Okay, mindful leadership. Let's begin. First, did you want to start us with a practice to settle us into today's topic, Andy?
Absolutely, that would be great. So let me invite everybody to take a posture that feels both alert and relaxed, straightening up the back, the posture, and letting the chest open up, maybe pulling the shoulder blades together behind the back a little bit so your chest is open for easy breathing, putting both feet flat on the floor and taking your hands and just letting them drop in the lap. And when you're ready, just allowing the eyes to gently close, or if you prefer, just looking downwards with a soft gaze. And checking in with yourself in this moment, just noticing what it feels like to come to stillness, noticing what's going on inside you, the thoughts, emotions that are present, and just checking in with yourself. What's the state of mind right now? What's the internal weather like right now? And just observing, being open and curious to whatever's here. There's no right or wrong way to feel. Just kind of kicking back and watching what's present. And now noticing the fact that you're breathing. And noticing the sensations of the breath as it moves in and out of the body. And perhaps zeroing in on the sensations right at the nostrils, right at the tip of the nose where the cool air is drawn in and the warm air is released. And with each breath, letting your body settle a little bit more deeply into the chair. Following the breath as it moves in and out of the body and letting that be the only thing that needs to happen right now. Following 3 more cycles of the breath in and out of the body. Just savoring these free and open breaths. And when you're ready, allowing your eyes to open again. And if you want, just letting your body stretch or move any way that feels good right now. Okay, thanks for that.
Thank you, Andy. And hello to those of you just joining us. Hello, Julie and Dee. Good to see you guys. And Harsha sends his hellos and he says, glad to see you because he saw you live at the GeoBiz Summit. You were great.
Thank you. That was fun.
And Harsha did say he missed the first 3 parts of the series, but just a reminder to anyone watching, this stands alone. The first 3 were their own isolated topics, and we will be summarizing the previous topics and mindful leadership in general, so you are by no means behind. But do let us know if you'd like us to catch you up on any concepts. Leave those questions in the chat box or the Q&A box. So, speaking of catching up, we started with mindful leadership in general. Then we talked about presence, and then building trust. How does connection build on all of these principles of mindful leadership?
Yeah, it's a great question. So as we mentioned, in earlier sessions, presence is table stakes. Presence means that as a leader, you have to be paying attention. You have to be tuned into what's going on around you, and especially tuned into your team. What they're up to, how they're doing, what's going on for them. You really need to have that level of awareness to do any kind of leadership. Trust is a quality that you create within a team. It's kind of the part of the culture of a team, where you create a sense of safety, of psychological safety, where people are comfortable bringing up whatever they think is important about the business or even personal things that they want to share, where people feel comfortable that they're going to be supported by their team. And if they have a challenge or even a mistake or a problem that they need to talk about, they can do that, and it can be a productive discussion. And today we're going to be talking about connection. So connection is kind of the next step. Once you have this feeling of trust within a team, there's the opportunity to take the conversations a little bit deeper. And the way you do that is through one-on-one connections with the people on your team. And connection is something that works between any 2 people. But I think it's so important for leaders to prioritize, another theme that we've had throughout, prioritize the people that are your team, because they're the people that get your work done. They're the people that are going to help you to be successful. And, an important part of that success is really connecting with and understanding the people that are on your team.
And what does this kind of connection look like? Because people might think, oh, well, my team's connected. They're always reporting to me. We're constantly exchanging information. Just, in today's world, we're constantly communicating and exchanging information. And yet, however, nobody feels connected. So what do you do so that there is a real sense of human connection?
Yeah, that's a great point, Stefan, because these days I think people are thinking, man, I am just too connected. I really want to disconnect. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
You can have a couple of chat windows open. You can be on a conference call and emailing somebody at the same time. Isn't that being connected? Well, that kind of connection, it really kind of skips along the surface. It's not really digging in. It's a very a lot of times it's very helpful to just have information you need from people. But if you really want to make a connection with people, it takes a little bit, you need to go a little bit deeper. So what we're talking about in terms of connection is really a one-on-one understanding of what your team members, what their preferences are, what they're like as human beings, basically, and what they're like as human beings at work. And so, like, what makes them feel motivated? What do they want to accomplish as a professional? There's so many things that are going on for people. And this is really helpful for leaders to know, because number one, it feels good and it motivates both you and the other person. And number two, it really gives you a lot of great tools and ideas, to help to motivate people and to help them to be at their best and do their best work for you.
So this is really powerful stuff because we're not just talking about someone who's, you know, tasking his team, his or her team, or just giving them directives, or even like inspiring them as a whole group with like
Yeah.
really uplifting speeches or something
Yeah.
like that. We're talking about actually like coaching, mentoring, developing your people in a way like on very individual levels.
Yes, exactly. Because having an inspiring mission and inspiring goals are really important. They people need to know, where's the business going, where's my department going, how can I, contribute to the success. But there's always another side to everybody. Everybody has in their minds perhaps the next job they want, or a certification or a skill they want to get better at, or something in their private lives that they need to work around or work with in terms of their work life. Perhaps there are some elderly parents or young kids that are part of the picture. And as a leader, if you know these things about somebody, it can help you to do things for them that they really value and that are really going to help them either personally or professionally. And that is just so motivating for people. That just pays off so many times over. I've seen it in my own career as a leader, and I've experienced it myself, and I've seen it in other situations as well.
So, can any challenges come up here? Like, are there ever any issues kind of potentially reconciling all of these different priorities? Like, what if there's a conflict of interest? Like, this is what my team member needs, but it's not in the interest
Yeah.
of the company.
Yeah, that's a great point. Um, and yeah, sometimes, for instance, maybe you're running a developer team, and one of the people wants to become a salesperson, or you find out something about somebody that is not really aligned with your team goals. Well, um, I think from a mindfulness perspective and from a trust and connection perspective, it's really better to know these things than to not know them, because whatever your team member is thinking, they're going to act on that. And the question is, would you rather know about it or not know about it? Is it pleasant or unpleasant? It's kind of better to know either way. Um, and however, I'll put a caveat on that. It definitely doesn't mean, come into my office and tell me everything that you want to accomplish, tell me everything that you like and everything that you don't like, and I'm going to make your work life just perfect because I'm going to tailor it to you. That's not what it's about. It's not making a commitment to say that whatever you want, you're going to get. But it's making the commitment that I'm going to listen and I'm going to take these things into account. And actually, Stefan, the interesting thing is that once you have these conversations and you have this connection with someone, it doesn't actually take any extra work, and it actually makes work much easier, because it makes it much easier to delegate things. And imagine if you delegate something to someone and they say, and they're thinking to themselves, wow, that's great. That's just the kind of project I'm hoping for. That's just the thing that I want to learn about, instead of just randomly assigning things to people. Um, it really works in everyone's interest.
Right. So, it doesn't just mean indulging every possible whim and solving all of your employees' problems. It just means acknowledging what's happening with them. And I've heard this discussed in mindful communication techniques,
Yeah.
and understanding needs. It doesn't mean every need has to be fulfilled, but it can be honored. Like, I honor that you have this,
Right.
and I'll help if I can,
Right.
but not necessarily, right? It just has to be observed. Is this more, I guess, about observing, acknowledging, collecting information, providing understanding, than just simply, yeah, being the genie in the bottle for your employees?
That's true, but there is a lot that you can do. I mean, you don't have to commit to it, but as I said, many times these things just kind of present themselves. Like, imagine you see a one-day workshop that's happening on like professional skills in that city, on a day that's not busy, and you suggest to somebody that they should go because they're interested in that. I mean, that can be so helpful for them, and it can really you can build some serious loyalty if you know how to manage people based on not only their job description and their role, but who they are and what they want to accomplish personally and professionally.
All right, great. So let's say I am a leader and my employees right now in my head are just these like dots moving around the office, and they're totally opaque, and I have no sense of who they are and what they need.
Yeah,
How do I start? What
yeah.
systems, what techniques do I use to begin connecting with them?
Great question again. And you know what? If you're not used to these kinds of conversations, it can be a little bit awkward. So you might actually, get it, run it by an HR person or somebody that you trust to say, I want to have this kind of conversation. What I would suggest is you just, set up a meeting and say, I want to talk about your career development. I want to learn about your work style and your interests, so that I can help to develop you and to support you better. And then once you get in that meeting, I mean, one question that I find can go in so many great directions is if you just ask someone to reflect. And again, here's this mindfulness aspect. Just ask them to reflect about one time in the not too distant past when they felt that they were really firing on all cylinders, when they felt that they were working on something that they were interested in and they were using their skills and they were just feeling really good at work, and have them tell you about that project and that experience. Um, and that'll tell you a lot about how people like to work, what they prefer. And then after that, you can build in, so you can follow up with some other kind of more traditional prompts, if you will, or probes like, how do you like to be managed? Um, are there any skills that you want to develop? What would your ideal job look like, or where do you want to be 5 years from now? And see if you can not jump in right away with advice or feedback, but just let people talk and use the mindful listening skills that we talked about in presence to just put yourself into their seat and say, so what you're saying is, or it sounds like what you want to do is, play it back to them. And that way they'll know that you're hearing them. And, this information will stay with you. It seems like it might be a lot to take in, but it gets, this level of information really stays with you. It's not that hard to remember when somebody tells you like what's really important to them.
Right. And guys, I'd like to hear you weigh in, everyone attending today. Let us know ways that leaders have connected to you that was meaningful to you, ways that inspired you to, you know, enjoy your work, to grow, to be better employees, and not just better employees, but like actually do the work you like doing. I got a question here. Is there a different sorry. Is there a different way to lead where the teams are generally remote?
Hmm. I don't know if there is. It'll influence a lot of things, but if anything, I think that this kind of conversation will be more important if they're remote, because it's so easy to um, just interact with remote people when there are meetings. You're not going to run into them in the hallway. You're not going to run into them in the cafeteria, or so I think it's actually more important to do this kind of discovery with people who are remote. Yeah.
Right. So the answer to that is be ever more vigilant about connecting with your teams because already there's a climate of disconnection. Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And do you know of any particular like best practices or techniques to like maintain this rigor that can be applied to a remote business, which I guess are becoming more and more prominent now, and they don't have the luxury of sort of in-person intimacy?
Well, regular one-on-one meetings is a great place to start. And it's kind of old-fashioned. I really think it's important to have regular meetings with the people that work for you where they own the agenda, actually. You can have anything that you want them to know, perhaps from, people above you or other things that you want them to focus on. Um, but let them own the agenda and let them start the conversation about what's going on for them and what they need from you. And it doesn't have to be every week. I'm not saying it has to be, or it doesn't have to be a particular length, just whatever works for you. But I think that regular cadence of one-on-one meetings is really important.
And regarding sort of meeting and talking with your employees, I know it's maybe easier to feel like you can connect to your team when they're performing well. How do you continue to connect with your team if some members are underperforming?
Well, again, I think that is a time that it's really important to reach out to people and to better understand what's going on for them. Is there anything that I can do to support you better? Is there anything, tell me about what's going on, what's going right and what's going wrong for you right now, and what can be done to move things in a more positive direction. Those conversations are really important to have, because here's the thing. It's very tempting when people aren't doing well to say, okay, I got to tell this person this. I got to line up all my facts and I got to dump them on them, so they I crush them under the facts, and they can't say, oh no, it's not true, and then we end up going in over prepared, and we say, you did this and this and this and this, and it's very demotivating, and it's actually not what you want to do or what you intended to do. But this tightness about talking to someone about this issue can create this. So if you can move those conversations as quickly as possible into the future to say, how can we make this better? How can next time that you do this, or the next project or report that you do, be better? How can we get there? That's a much more constructive discussion.
Right. So rather than making them feel like they're on trial and you've got a case to prove, it's
Yeah.
more making them feel supported. And I've actually read this in a mindful communication book. I'm addicted to reading those. They it was yeah, there was an employee underperforming, kind of delinquent, frustrating all the other team members. And so the project leader, CEO, someone that's in charge, called them in and apologize to them. It's like, I'm so sorry. I was like, what? He was expecting to get brought through the ringer. So sorry, I haven't really been paying attention to what you need,
Uh,
so that you can like work with your team.
right. And
And sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a great example. But the other thing, again, to remember is that this doesn't mean that everything is going to automatically be worked out, or this person is going to kind of get on board. Perhaps their mind is really somewhere else. But I think what helps, if you think about it in terms of, is this person fitting into this job? You know, is there a fit here, or is it just not? Are their skills just not the ones that are required for? It's not personal. It's not about whether you're good enough for this job or not good enough for this job. It's about whether this is the right job for you. And sometimes people want to keep doing a job, even though they're not going to, for whatever reason, skills or otherwise, it's not the right fit for them. It's not the right place for them to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Identifying that's so important rather than just continuing something not working. And actually, Harsha has a question around that. We've already talked about it a bit, but if you have more to say about this, he says, when things don't work and people depart on a bad note, how do we incorporate mindfulness as leaders to help resolve this?
Well, yeah, we did start to talk about it, and this is a hard situation because if someone is going to leave a job, it's going to feel very personal to them. There's not much way of a way around that. But if you can minimize that by saying, um, "This is not the right job for you," the fit wasn't there. You're going to be, there may be a lot of other places where you might be successful, you know and you need to find perhaps a role or a function or a calling that better matches your skills, where you can really move forward, because it just wasn't going to happen here. It's really about fit. It's not about judgment. And let them feel whole as a human being. And a lot of times these things are the best things that can happen, because people actually do that. They leave jobs where they don't fit well, but they were scared to leave, and they find the thing that they're actually much more suited for.
Right. Okay. We're a bit past the 20-minute mark now, but I'll keep things going just a few more minutes. If anyone has to be on their way, definitely be on your way. We'll end with a closing practice shortly. Um, yeah, I guess my last question here is around, that feeling that maybe some job is deadening, is uninspiring and maybe isn't for you. Can a leader that fosters connection with their employees perhaps be the antidote to that, or is it in fact maybe this isn't the right job for them? How do we determine that in terms of connecting to our employees, whether it's the wrong fit or just there just hasn't been the right amount of connection?
Yeah, it's a matter of trial and error. I think that, people need a couple of opportunities. They need feedback, and they need the opportunity to use that feedback to the best of their ability. And then the chips will fall where they may. The evidence, the eventually it'll become clear, is all I would say. But it's important not to prejudge. It's important as much as you can. And of course, there's some jobs where there's very little room for error, where you need someone to be 100%, like, an air traffic controller. You can't say, oh, well, that was one plane, but, next time maybe we'll do better. But that was probably inappropriate, but uh, you need to give people the benefit of the doubt wherever you can, and to let these things just play out as much as is possible.
No, I'm a fan of extreme examples, to really illustrate a point. So it's totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, before we go, just one more question around what to do to foster connection in situations where there is a struggle for connection, and where have you seen it really work? Like, can you give me like a field report from a sort of before and after picture where there was really a lot of struggles and a few simple shifts kind of opened up
Mhm,
all kinds of possibility in the
mhm.
organization?
Yeah, I'll give you one from someone who worked for me not so long ago. Um, uh, she was her role was officially project manager, and she was supposed to do project plans and metrics and all that kind of stuff, and she did it fairly well. I mean, she was very dedicated, and she gave it a lot of energy. But when I had this conversation with her, this was in a training function. She told me that she really wanted to become a trainer. She really wanted to learn presentation skills, and she wanted to get out and lead classes. And then once I understood that, um, I managed to kind of start moving in that way. I said, okay, well, why don't you shadow this person? Why don't you sign up for this course and start to really move her in that direction, and found somebody else to take on the project management. So that, we could have been in conflict, or in a difficult place for months, or longer, as I would keep saying, these you need to raise your game on this project stuff. And it would have been okay. I mean, I would definitely have been within my purview, but it was so much easier to move her into something that she really enjoyed and she was really motivated to do. And she became an excellent trainer. And I found somebody who came in to do the project management stuff, and she loved to do the project management stuff. So that's a true story, and it worked out really well.
Amazing. And I'm sure everyone was so much more thankful, even if there was always the potential of, like, hurt feelings in the beginning. At the end, they'd be like, thank you so much. I'm where I need to be now, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Great. So I guess we have a few minutes left here. I do have one more question in. Do you have time for it, Andy?
Yeah, sure.
All right. This one also comes from Harsha. How do we get other employees practicing mindfulness? Which is a really, I think that's a good question, because we were talking about
Yes.
doing that and implementing that, and connection is also about not just being the only mindful person, but getting your team to be as mindful as they can possibly be.
Right. Yeah, I mean, once we discover mindfulness, it's so tempting to, it's from a really good place to want to share that, to say you got to try this or you should do this because from what I can see, you could really use it. Um, the best way to get started in this space is to practice yourself, and the way to convince people is the most powerful way that I've found is when you're around someone who practices, who uses these skills. Sometimes people will come up to you and they'll say, what is it about you? And maybe you've had this experience. You meet someone, you're like, I want some of whatever they've got, I want some of it. Or, it's amazing how they stayed calm during that conflict, or how they really connected with that audience. That is what's going to convince people to give it a try. It's not going to be quoting. I mean, articles and information help, okay, but telling people what they should and shouldn't do, I would suggest, maybe suggest that they try it, but really you're going to be the best. You're going to be the best salesperson for mindfulness yourself, and how you show up.
Absolutely. People need to feel like it's their decision, and it will be if they see living examples of it where it's working,
Yep. Yep.
like with anything else, right?
Yep.
All right. Amazing. Wow. We're almost at half an hour now. I should pass things over to you now, Andy, if you'd like to close things off with practice or some final words on connection.
Sure. And I'll just invite people to close their eyes briefly again. Tune into the breath. And perhaps bring to mind one person on your team. It could be someone on your team if you're a leader. It could be a colleague, someone at work who perhaps there's the opportunity to connect with them a little bit more deeply. Someone that you feel a sense of connection with, but you sense that there's something there, something more that's worth exploring. Just taking a moment to think about who that person might be. And perhaps making a commitment to reach out to them, to meet with them and learn about them and share something about yourself with them in the near future. And when you're ready, allowing your eyes to open again. And I just want to thank everybody for coming. I'm really enjoying these sessions. I hope this was helpful for you. And thank you, Stefan, for your great questions as always.
You're welcome. It was such a pleasure. Thank you. So eye-opening.
Okay, take care, everybody. We'll see you for the next session.